an I can do it attitude, but he just doesn't seem to get, if they break the pocket with Spencer, it's like something bad's gonna happen sometimes, and Williams doesn't seem that way at all.
Rather, he's not slow.
No, he doesn't scramble with the flip.
But he's not fast.
Everybody says he's better passing out of the pocket. All I see him do out of the pocket is something bad.
Yeah,
I don't know.
But yeah, he's not slow, but he's just not fast.
But if you look at the two of them next to each other, or even like, if you look at Williams versus Kyler Murray, he's just a big kid. He can run the ball. He could be a running back.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, that was what was great about Jalen Hurts. He was a running back that kind of threw a decent ball.
Yeah.
Williams is just,
he can throw better than a decent ball. He's dropped some. I mean, that replay where they showed where
Mims, wasn't it?
Mims' foot was about a half an inch inside the line. It's like, man, they get some camera work going out of those pylons.
Yeah, that was just things were happening. I feel a little sorry for old Rattler. I mean, it was Heisman Trophy and first round draft pick first season.
And now he's not even starting.
Yeah, nice. He's riding the climb.
He'll either be in the NFL or transfer, one or the other.
He may have to transfer and get another year under his belt for the NFL to take him.
That's what I'd do if I was him.
But, yeah, I mean, he's got the quickest release you've ever seen. I always love that. Man, the ball just comes out so fast.
And when he does, it's a nice tight spiral.
Oh yeah, he throws a beautiful ball. He just needs to not throw interceptions and fumbles.
He's just, for some reason, he sailed some balls this year.
I'm wondering if all the preseason hype didn't kind of get in his head.
And NIL probably got in his head a little bit. I heard that Alabama's starting quarterback has made almost $1 million in NIL, and he made 6 figures before he ever started the game.
Wow.
That's
going to come a point in time when these places like Texas and others, the boosters just start buying them recruits.
Yeah, well, no doubt.
And that's going to be a problem.
I think that's one of the big reasons Texas and OU are headed to the SEC, because the dollars will be bigger, I think, in that.
Oh, yeah, they're going to be so much bigger. So much bigger.
Alabama had a pretty good game that week with Texas A&M against Alabama, same week as the OU Texas.
I was so a Texas A&M fan that week.
I was too.
My son-in-law went to Texas A&M. He was having a tough year till that.
He was. Because they lost 2 in a row before that.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, and my daughter went to TCU, so they weren't having the greatest year either.
No. It's amazing. I mean, when we lived in Houston, I went to a couple games at Texas A&M just because it was so close.
Yeah.
But it's amazing to be in that. You can literally feel it rocking when they start doing that. I mean, I don't know how the engineering stands up, but you can physically feel your seat going back and forth.
That's an engineering school. I hope it does.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, they had a bonfire that didn't.
No, we lived in Houston when that happened. That was a big tragedy.
Oh yeah,
it was.
I mean, that thing was huge too. It was like 100 feet tall or something.
Well, they had a bonfire every year until they had that accident and those kids died. That was a big deal in Houston.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was in Dallas at the time. We had a lot of heartache.
Yep. This might be Georgia's year. We'll see. I can't believe their defense is allowing as few touchdowns as they are.
Who has Georgia actually played so far?
Well, they opened up the season against Clemson, but we've learned Clemson is very good. Hey, John.
Hey, Mr. Dallas. Hi, sir. Fine. Yes.
Howdy, howdy.
Pick wherever you want.
All right.
How's the health? Good, I hope?
Well, it's 1 foot ahead of the other.
Well, that's better than the alternative.
I guess.
We'll give Herschel a couple more minutes.
Yeah.
Ted, I thought that was a nice letter that Tom wrote about the MGC.
Yeah. He's a big user,
I just
very
wish
supportive of it.
every lender was smart enough to figure out is the 1 to 2% net cost after you get your tax.
Yeah. He's, of course, he got to science. We've got basically a spreadsheet. He plugs numbers in. And
Oh yeah, when we were at Spirit,
yeah.
you just plugged in the amount you borrowed and the interest rate and your tax level, and it calculated all of that.
Yeah.
Well, in 2 minutes we'll call it order.
He's on the way. How long do you want to wait?
I don't know that we have any critical things to vote before he gets here. We can probably go ahead and start and let some of the things go through.
Probably going to be 10 or 15 minutes.
Okay.
Probably call it to order.
John, you okay if we call it to order and Herschel gets here in a few minutes?
That's fine.
Okay, well, it's 1:35. Let's call the meeting to order. The Oklahoma County Home Finance Authority. The first item on our agenda is to receive the fiscal year 2020 audit, which has been requested and provided. So,
Minutes?
You want to do the minutes?
I'm sorry, yeah, the minutes. So I signed 4 sets of meeting minutes because we had no quorum meetings, and the last meeting we had was that we had minutes on was March 25th, 2019, if I recall correctly. Anybody remember any meeting minutes since then? I think they've all been no quorum since then, kind of going on autopilot.
Do they need to vote on each one separately?
No,
Or can they
it's
just
just
vote
one
on
item.
Okay.
So, John, can I have a motion that those be, I will second that the no quorums be signed, and they have been, and they've been provided. Thank you for doing that. Okay, so now we're on to the audit. Sorry for getting.
You bet.
How's everybody today?
Good.
Should have a copy. The management discussion analysis, which is the Roman numerals in front, that's actually prepared by Ed and David Gandil, I guess, and your attorneys.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to really address that. Pages 1 and 2 is the audit opinion. It's an unqualified opinion. It doesn't get any better than that.
So good.
Good to go on that. Financial statements starting on page 3. End of the year with $2,300,000 in cash as compared to $1,300,000 last year. Cash and restricted cash about the same, 902 as compared to 985. Investments last year were $6 million. They were 954,000 this year. So, gee, where'd all the money go? Well, you paid off all you did, which you guys already knew that.
Mm-hmm.
$5,007,000 last year as compared to 822,000. So you basically shrunk your assets and shrunk your liabilities and left your equity about the same. Which that's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just not a thing.
Okay.
Page 4, income statement. Revenues last year 547. This year 628. Expenses are down remarkably. 575 this year as compared to 720 last year. And of course that's just across the categories. Most of your bond financing costs. That's interest, of course. Since you pay down the debt, you don't have the interest. Makes sense. So net loss last year of 172,000. Net gain this year, 53,000. So you kind of just basically broke even when you look at the size of your numbers.
Okay,
Cash flow statement on page 5. I can't go any faster, guys. So if I need to slow down, say slow down. If I need to speed up, you're not going to get it. Cash flow from operations, that very first subtotal, last year was a negative 96. This year it's a negative 244. We typically like to see that as a positive number, but you guys are kind of an odd animal. So I don't really know what to make of that. I mean, your cash is going up, you're paying your debt down, so I don't really know that I see a good or bad thing. Overall, cash for the year went up $904,000 as compared to going down $139,000 last year. So that's a positive thing right there. Footnotes are rather dry, tedious reading. Anything that's worth looking at is basically starts on page 9 where we start to see a breakout of the investments such as they are now. You're down to just these 3 issues of 294, 232, and 426 for that 954,000. So that is what it is. And the bonds start on page 2 of the debt, I should say. And of course, we paid that way down to next to nothing now. So that's about all I got. We've got the combining schedules. We're back in 14, 15, 16, and 17. This is just both years where all your various programs where we mashed them together to come up to one single column that you saw up front. So nothing really to get excited about there. You're about kind of what you are. You've wound down 3 programs that you see on page 14 of those columns are just sitting blank. Whereas they had just a trickle of activity. Last but not least, on page 18 is the reporting in conformance with the government auditing standards. Top part's internal control, second part's compliance. There's no internal control findings whatsoever. I mean, the way you guys do things, having the BOK basically do all the transactions, they all have to flush through their system, is really a good control because, I mean, they're second guessing everything, I'm sure, are they not?
Yeah, I don't have any authority.
Yeah. And as far as compliance is concerned, typically when we see compliance issues, it's Open Meeting Act stuff or payroll related stuff. Well, that's not an issue here either. So other than that, so it was good. The books are always neat and clean once we get them. So questions?
John, any questions?
Well, Ed, could you mail me a copy of this or what?
Yes, sir, I mailed a complete envelope to everybody on Friday afternoon. Included the audit, all the handouts. Did you get your copy?
Came in a manila envelope, if I recall correctly.
I didn't get.
Did it
I
not
got
show
mine.
up?
I know I got mine off the internet.
Mail might not have delivered yours yet. It was just
I
Friday.
mailed everybody a copy Friday after lunch.
Okay.
But it sounds as though the audit was fine, no questions. I mean,
Yeah, there's, it's like I said, once we get a hold of it and the way BOK does things, and the way Gandil does things, we don't have a lot of stuff to have a lot of problems with.
Okay.
We had some delays this year because of COVID on getting the financials prepared, but that was nothing that a lot of other people didn't experience well.
I agree.
Yeah, I think David had people out of the office a lot
Yeah,
at his place. I was in the office because it's just me, so I never missed a beat. But that doesn't cure the problem.
you had some people out.
I'm
So
pretty certain he did. I think he's had some staff turnover as well,
Yeah.
so which is not uncommon when you have 6 or 8, 10 people working in the county office.
Well, relative to the debt, and Mark, I think it's probably similar with other organizations you're with, but when you're not rolling out new programs because of the market.
It's not paying down.
Right, exactly, and which is what we've been doing.
But if there are questions, phone numbers and emails, addresses are on the letterhead. You guys feel free to call. And of course, Ed knows how to get a hold of me, so.
Question, Ed, what address are you using for the mail out?
beg pardon?
The address that you sent this to.
I'd have to. It's your Northeast 52nd Street address.
I live on 55th.
Well, whatever it is. I mean, It's the address I have on file.
Okay, you might wanna change that address.
I'll double check it.
1208 Northeast 55th.
I'll double check it.
I know mine came, I wanna say Saturday, it was in a manila
Should have
envelope,
been funded, yeah.
so hopefully yours will still show up, John. Any other questions on the audit? I'll entertain a motion to accept if there's no other questions,
I move that we accept the audit as
and I will second that. Any discussion? Call for the question. All in favor of accepting the audit as submitted, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Let the record show that carried unanimously. The next item is, the down payment assistance program and mortgage credit certificate program, and Ed, I think you're gonna talk to us about that.
Yes, one of the handouts, I sent out, I'm sorry, John, you didn't get the,
I've got a couple extra added hours.
Now, John, in your packet, it wasn't in a booklet like that. It was just like this, stapled up whenever your packet comes.
There you go, John. You bet.
is that the, MCC?
That's the MCC.
Oh, okay. Well, we have two existing programs, our DPA program and our MCC program. Both of them are running at origination speed that we have historically run at. Our third-party administrator for both programs, Raymond James, prepared summary sheets summarizing the current 3-year MCC program and the DPA program since its origin in 2013. The one footnote I would make to you on this participating lender count on the second and the third and fourth pages, we have 3 primary lenders right now that are pulling the weight. If you'll notice here, this includes First Mortgage Company, this list. Of course, they've been out of business for a while, but they were the #1 lender in our program for as long as they were in business. And when they went out of business, that went away. But our current 3 primary lenders are Fairway Independent, Gateway Mortgage Group, and Prime Lending. And those 3 also are our primary originators in our MCC program. We're originating at a rate of about 10 to 12 million a year in total volume. 1.5 to 1.75 a month in originations. The distribution of loans among the demographics are also included in both of these summaries. And as far as the MCC program is concerned, one of the things we have on the agenda today is to initiate a new program effective January 1st, 2022. These programs run in 3-year increments, and we have to notify the IRS at the beginning of a new 3-year run that we wish to convert actually a request for mortgage revenue bond cap into mortgage credit certificate use. So that's what we have resolutions coming out in Jared here in a minute that will describe that process. We hold a public hearing, we publish notice, and then we initiate the program effective January 1st. The MCC program, again, is running. We authorized a 10 million program last time, and we have a little over 900,000 left for the last 2.5 months of the year, which we will more than likely originate a couple more mortgages out of that. So 10 million to 12 million is still our sweet spot in a 3-year program. And, again, there is a letter of support in your packet, from Tom Davies with Fairway. And Tom does probably more of the MCCs than anybody else, and he actually has it down to a science where he has a spreadsheet and plugs people in when they walk in the door. So he's very active in using the MCC to qualify folks whose income without the MCC would not get them into their house. One other note of interest, it's always interesting to me about our down payment assistance program. Although our intent is to assist first-time home buyers, it is not a requirement, because this is not a federal bond program. But if you'll see in the information sheet, I believe 98% of the users of our DPA program are in fact first-time home buyers. So it remains a driving force in Oklahoma County for assisting first-time home buyers to get into the first house. Mark, would you like to add anything? Come on up to the table, Mark.
Yeah, sure, thank you.
Yeah,
That's a good summary, and just, congratulations on the MCC program and the, down payment assistance program we call Turnkey Plus, I guess now, Ed. But, that program had been sort of ebbing, your down payment assistance program, and we made a few changes, as you recall, in 2 separate board meetings, and some of them at Ed's, suggestion, increasing the lender income and doing a few other things, such that now you go in and you did over $9 million in the last 12 months in the down payment assistance program, and about $9 million in the past 2.5 years on the MCC program. So we appreciate, Raymond James appreciates the opportunity to serve Ed and this board and the Oklahoma County Housing Finance Authority, and successful programs, and I think it makes sense to consider a follow-on. Well, the down payment assistance program will continue until you decide to stop it, or until somebody decides to stop it. So it just goes, it's kind of evergreen, right? So it will continue, but there is board action required to apply for the down payment for the mortgage revenue bond cap, MCC cap, single family bond volume cap that gets converted to MCC, and the fact that it's helping low mod first time home buyer families in Oklahoma City and Oklahoma County makes us inclined to recommend that the board consider doing a follow-on program for 2022 to launch in January or February, so as not to have downtime for the lenders. But no, we appreciate the good work of Jared and his firm, and Ed and staff, and everyone who touches these 2 programs. It's a heavy lift from day to day, week to week, year to year, and we're glad that they've been successful, both of them, for you and for your lender partners and your homebuyer families. And happy to continue on if that be the wish of the board. I'm happy to answer any questions as well. Thank you, David.
Well, before we get to questions, because not everybody has seen Tom's letter, and Tom worked for me for years when we were at Spirit Bank, really good lender. It's only a 1-paragraph letter, but there's one sentence in it that I really think speaks volumes to our MCC program, so I'd like to read the letter. I'm a big advocate of Oklahoma County's Mortgage Credit Certificate program. For most home buyers, the $166 a month represents a real savings that helps their cash flow. When you combine MCC tax savings with the low rates in the marketplace, it lowers the cost of borrowing into the 1% to 2% range. Here's the sentence we need to focus on. I've actually had a single mother get emotional and cry at the closing table. So that just says that the MCC program is doing what it's supposed to be doing. Tom closed the letter and just said, thanks for continuing this wonderful program. As a former lender before I retired, I can tell you that mortgage credit certificates are, that $166 a month sometimes changes someone from not being able to qualify to being able to qualify, because Fannie Mae and FHA allow you to add that income to their net to come up with more income. And in the DU world, in the loan prospector world, the underwriting machines of Fannie and Freddie, the machine makes a decision, and sometimes having a bit more income to affect the debt to income ratios is the difference between getting a loan and not getting a loan. And Tom has some real life experience in that. So with that, I'll open it up to questions, John.
Okay, on the loan types of this page here, where it says the conventional is 53%, is there a reason why that's so high? As far as the number?
From a lender's perspective, I'll answer that with my lender hat back on. The Fannie Mae loan limit is higher than the FHA loan limit, and most of the time higher than the VA loan limit. And sometimes the tax credit to a borrower makes more difference as they make more income and they have more ability to take that tax credit. So in a lot of cases, the MCC will represent a little bit higher income borrower than the down payment assistance program. They don't necessarily need the DPA, but they want the tax credit, and that's typically a higher price purchase, maybe not always a first home. But to me, that's one of the reasons. Mark, you might speak about other lenders' experience, but
The only thing I would add, Mr. Chairman, board members, is that in the case of the MCC program, the lender and the homebuyer choose the bond, the type of loan, not the program, not the issuer. Not the
yeah, there's
borrower.
not an income restriction.
Correct. So as a consequence, these folks, the only requirement is that it be a fixed rate loan, not variable rate, and not an IO, and that it be 40 years or less. All of your loans have been 30-year fixed rate mortgages on this program. So this is about what we see average in other MCC programs around the country about this kind of breakdown. It tends to be a little more conventional, as David said, because of those higher loan balances.
Okay, before we get off of that, is there a report to show the amount of families that are past due or delinquent in our programs?
We can't do that for the lender may know, the participating lender may know the answer to that, but we don't have access to this loan data. What you did is that the lender gave their loan to the homebuyer, and the service that Oklahoma County HFA provided was pairing that loan with MCC credits, and they get $2,000 a year federal income tax credit. But we don't have privity with the lender or the homebuyer or the loan, right? We just know that we've got the certificate and we send it to them every year. The lender, we can get some data generally on the down payment assistance program, but not these loans because they're not your loans. You didn't make them, you just pair them with the credit certificate MCC.
Yeah, unlike our DPA program where there's a master servicer like a US Bank as an example, these can be any servicer that the lender might sell the loan to or keep the loan and keep the servicing. They just tie an MCC to it, and then there's an annual report that comes out each year for the individual borrower for their tax credit on their tax return.
Right.
But as an example, Fairway probably services most of what they make, so Tom's are servicing, and we don't necessarily have a right to get that. I don't think the delinquency ratio, from what I've seen just in general, is any higher on the programs with MCC than it is with not MCC, and it does tend to run a little bit higher on the programs with down payment assistance, but not significantly higher.
The reason for my asking that question is that probably in the next 90 days or probably maybe after the first of the year, the state's going to have a program that will help families that are in default, in foreclosure, and also in loan modification. And my question is, will the lender reach out to the families in order for them to make that first ditch effort to get that assistance? It has to be COVID related, but the amount that's going to be available is going to be significant, and it will probably help some of the families, and maybe not on this program, but on programs overall generally, for them to go and apply for those funds. And it is a grant. It is a grant. it'll be on the first come, first served basis. I guess my question is, whether it's this program or any of our other programs, are the lenders going to be proactive in getting the families to apply for that assistance? That's why I asked the question.
From a servicing perspective, they're required to educate borrowers on programs that are available in pre-foreclosure counseling options and payment assistance options. And again, I retired at the end of the year, so I'm sure a lot of COVID things have changed since I stepped out of the lending in 2020. But I can tell you that from a servicing standpoint, it's a federal requirement to tell borrowers about options like that and what's available before you initiate foreclosure.
And of course, can make sure that the summary of that program is delivered to the lenders in both the down payment assistance program and your MCC program. Both your programs, at least the active lenders, can be made aware that it's there. And I know you've seen that some of the stuff from before.
And on the MRB, I'm sure we could reach out to US Bank and ask them for delinquency numbers if we just want to see how it's going.
And they're
Those we would know.
Yeah, they're your servicer as well on the current non-bond program.
Right.
US Bank.
Well, the state of Oklahoma, I believe, is going to get like $87 million to assist those families, and they could apply up to, it's not an automatic, up to $20,000 worth of assistance, and it's going to be almost a one-time shot on the first come, first served basis. And I'm just trying to make sure that if we have lenders that are participating in any of our programs, that they reach out. And of course, the program hasn't started yet, but it'll probably roll out the 1st of December, that they be in a position to notify some of the families if they are delinquent or in foreclosure or behind to access these funds. Getting the word out now. How they do it, if they do it, I don't know.
That's a great idea, Mr. Pettis.
It is, and again, I think they have to. We do have an agenda item in a bit, since you can get your packet, talking about the Community Foundation and Community Care Partners for some things we can do in that regard, which is different than people that already have a loan. I understand what you're talking about, but I don't think we can ask the Fairways of the world to let us know on delinquency on deals that they did MCCs. I don't think they can tell us, but I do know from a servicing standpoint, they have to give borrowers those opportunities.
Okay, I'm not gonna beat a dead horse. Like this is being, like I said, this is a new program that's gonna come out. And yes, they may have already notified them for the pre-closure expense as a federal requirement. But under this, I don't know if this is going to be a requirement for them to go back and notify them again. I just want to make sure that the information is going to get to the people who may be able to save their home.
Well, Ed, where we can, like with US Bank on our DPA program, we can certainly ask them if they're implementing that, and he can let us know. And I do think we have a right to that, as with them being the master servicer, at least inquire.
If it's no more than informational purposes, it's going to be administered by.
Obviously, there's not phone service. I called you 3 times. Trying to find out which room we were in. Just forgive my casualness.
And
Well, I'm in jeans,
I mean,
so it doesn't matter.
just to piggyback on that, I mean, US Bank is currently the servicer for OFA as well. And, you know, I know Leanne and those folks have been, you know, kind of pumping that information out. And, you know, this homeowner assistance fund that John's talking about, it's kind of just like our ERA programs. You know, Treasury puts a whole big pot of money out there, and then there's not guidance that comes with it for months, you know, sometimes later. And so, you know, OFA's been working through kind of their submissions to Treasury, getting the program blessed, you know, all of those kinds of things.
You staffers.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, I know that every effort is being made from that standpoint to notify folks that this is coming. They can't give a definitive date of when it's going to start, but I think most of the servicers and at least lenders are familiar, with it. But again, I mean, we can certainly pump it out to our email chain and say it's happening, and don't come to us. Go, you got to get your assistance from OFA. But
Herschel, to bring you up to speed, we're talking about reauthorizing potentially the mortgage credit certificate program. And Tom Davies wrote a letter. I'll just read you. I've read the letter to the board, but I'll read you one sentence that tells me we need to do this. He's talking about the program. He's the most active user. The one sentence is, I actually had a single mother get emotional and cry at the closing table. The MCC program made a difference to her being able to buy a home and not buy a home. I've talked to Tom about that deal, and it's just a good program. It's the tax credit certificate program, and we're in the question and answer piece now. And John was asking about how lenders are contacting people that are behind with respect to some of the federal monies that are out there and still coming out for foreclosure, rent assistance, etc.
Gotcha, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any more questions, John? Okay, so if there are no other questions, I'll entertain a motion to continue or I guess redo the mortgage credit certificate
Item
program.
number 4?
Yes.
Yes. Sure.
yeah, so item number 4 is to reauthorize
Okay, wait a minute. Okay, do we need action on item number 3 to reauthorize it for this?
I think that was
They're
just
two
a discussion
separate
item.
two separate deals. I'm skipping 3 now because we started talking about mortgage credit certificate.
Okay,
And I think up here, it may be, we maybe want to agenda item off because on the draft we got mailed to us, it didn't have the minutes on it. But we're gonna go from 2 to 4 on what we have, or 3 to 5, I guess it is on that.
So I don't think number 3 requires any action. It's just discussion.
Right,
Accept the report, I guess.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, so you can accept that report if you want to, or you can kind of, there's really nothing to approve.
Okay,
Number 4 is the action item for the reauthorization of the MCC program. In the last program, we did a total $10 million amount, which required a volume cap ask of $20 million, kind of based on the success and the longevity that we've had with this one. We're proposing to increase that MCC credit up to $12 million. And so we would request $24 million of volume cap from the state bond advisor. We can either apply either out of the consolidated pool or the carry forward pool. I'm not sure what, there's plenty of cap left. I'm not worried about.
yeah, it's not like it used to be
yeah,
where you had to wait in line to get.
so my inclination is probably to wait. I mean, we can be working on the program documents, kind of getting the rest of our approvals, hearings. This resolution in particular, because it is a quote unquote bond authorization, even though we are converting to MCCs, it has to go to commissioners for approval. But we will go to commissioners after we've had the required public hearing per the IRS regs and all of that kind of stuff. So
When is the public hearing?
haven't said it yet. The new regs say that we have to have at least 7 days. So I always like to stick as close to the old rule as I can, just for conservative purposes. That was 14 days. So I would say we might touch bases with the clerk's office and see if there's a day that we can reserve this room again for a couple of weeks, down the road to kind of get that public hearing, buttoned up and taken care of.
Will you be at the public hearing?
Yes, sir.
And to remind the board members, I think it was like 1994, I had just stepped on this authority, and I went to an Alpha meeting in Minneapolis and went into a mortgage credit certificate presentation. And I think there were 38 states that had mortgage credit certificates at that time. And Oklahoma was the single most expensive state. We were charging, not we, the law firm that will remain unnamed was charging $1,000 to give a borrower a mortgage credit certificate. If I recall correctly, we're charging $0. So it's truly something that we're not making any money off of, just trying to be a good steward and help folks out. But we've literally gone from the most expensive state to, we have to be the least expensive state, or at least tied for it. You can't go below, I guess you could pay someone to do it, but we're
They're still
zero.
charging 1,000.
I don't know.
That's what they are.
They are?
Yes, Cleveland County,
Cleveland County.
Cleveland County, plus $12.50 a month maintenance.
Who's handling that?
I missed out on
Floyd
that
Law
deal,
Firm.
man.
He hasn't changed much, has he?
No.
Missed that one. Yeah, so that makes the other point that I was gonna, make, so there's a program administration agreement, there's, a few documentation items that we'll work, with Raymond James over the next couple of months to put the polishing touches on the, the new purchase limits, income limits, and all that kind of stuff will be incorporated, into the new program documents. But again, this is just a free service that we offer to lenders, to help them get low-income folks into housing.
Have there been any IRS or guideline changes that we should discuss before we
Not at all.
proceed?
Not at all. We've been fortunate that the tax exempt bond world, kind of post 2017 has been pretty quiet. And only holding out hope for a couple of additions, in a couple of the president's initiatives relative to bond provisions. If we could get those, through, that would be great, but I'm not holding my breath, on that, those particular things. Those are kind of cleanup items, that have needed to take place for a while. So, but nothing relative to MCCs, MRBs, anything like that that's changed of significance.
And there is still a requirement to do a publication in the newspaper and have to wait 90 days
Before the effective date.
So if
That's
you all
exactly
approve this, I'm sure you'll get that.
Yeah.
Straight away, at least to start that clock.
Absolutely. I think
January.
we would publish both the MCC publication notice and our notice of public hearing simultaneously.
Well, and by acting now, those wheels can start turning.
That's
if we
exactly
approve
right.
it Before we run out of money in the current program.
And
Well, yeah, the intent's to start January 1. So,
technically it'd be January 20th, at this point, but,
Okay.
just with the 90 days. So,
Publication.
but there would be a very short gap there, kind of right after the first of the year.
And you might reach out to the lenders, if we approve this, reach out to lenders and let them know there'll be a 3-week gap or whatever the time frame is.
Yeah, Stacy had already been talking about that. I said, we'll hold off until this meeting takes place. So we'll do it. As long as we know we've got cap and there's approval by this board, then I think we can let the lenders, start gearing up for that. And that there'll be, as you say, about a 3-week.
And all they have to really do is just tell them, hey, we just need to delay closing if you want the mortgage credit certificate, which typically wouldn't make or break a deal.
My birthday is January 23rd. So extra.
Any more questions or discussion on item, I guess it's 4? Then I'll call for a motion. Anyone move for approval?
I move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the mortgage credit certificate program. Any more questions or discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Let the record show that carried unanimously. And thank you. You guys always do a great job of bringing us up to speed on that and keeping us where we need to be since we're not the experts. So thank you both for that. Moving on, the next item is consider and take action with respect to authorizing execution of agreements with the Communities Foundation.
No.
Oh, sorry.
Do
This
you want-
draft
do you
had
wanna
me
use
off.
we need
this?
to do 5.
Yes.
Here's the agenda thing. Yeah, that one.
4 and 5 are
I
both
don't
MCC.
have that page on that.
One's asking for the cap.
Yeah.
Which one are we?
Number 5.
Number 5,
That's not,
this one,
I don't know if that's.
the one that's on the board up there.
I'm always worried.
Okay, so.
So number 4 was our request, for volume caps
Right.
and MRBs. Number 5 is the authority's election to convert that cap to an MCC program.
Okay,
This tags along with previous.
Yes, sir.
yep,
Need a motion?
we need a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to proceed. All in favor, aye. Opposed, same sign. Now that I have the right agenda in front of me, thank you for that. Item 6 is consider and take action authorizing the execution agreement with Community Foundation of Oklahoma and Community Cares Partners for the further administration of emergency rental assistance programs, particularly ERA2 of the U.S. Treasury on behalf of Oklahoma County, approving and authorizing professional services agreements related to the administration of the ERA2 program and containing other provisions related thereto.
So this is me again.
Is this similar to what we did last year?
Yes, sir. It is. As a matter of fact, it is just a continuation of the program that we started last year. So you'll remember we had an initial allocation from the CARES Act of $1.5 million from Oklahoma County, which they were gracious enough to provide us for mortgage and rental assistance. In the big omnibus spending bill at the end of January, there was enacted the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, or ERA1, and jurisdictions across the country were allocated millions of dollars, specifically for rental assistance, rental arrears, utility payments, those kinds. It comes with a very specific guideline on what the expenditures can be used for. Oklahoma County was awarded $8.1 million in the first ERA program. The guidelines, as I mentioned, were a little loosey-goosey at first, and the FAQs and all of those kinds of things. We've been staying on top of it. I tell you all of this is because initially there was a great concern that a lot of the allocees were not going to be able to expend their dollars. $8.1 million is a lot of money. The state received, almost $150 million. Tulsa County received, a big portion. Cleveland County received a big portion. Oklahoma City received a separate portion than Oklahoma County. And so we, just like with our CARES program, this program is eligible to county residents who reside outside of the incorporated area of the city of Oklahoma City, because the city of Oklahoma City has their own program. And so this is all of the unincorporated area of Oklahoma County and all of the smaller jurisdictions which did not receive an ERA allocation. As of, so these are actual dollars spent. So as of Monday, or close of business Friday, which the numbers released Monday afternoon, we have physically spent $6,318,417.98 of the county's original $8.1 million program. There is an additional $1.2 million that have been obligated but unspent. So if you add those two numbers up, you actually find that we go over the initial $8.1 million allocation. I've been working with Michael Taylor, who is Commissioner Mon's chief deputy, over the last couple of weeks to make sure that we're staying on top. We could not apply for the rest of the ERA2 funds until we show that we've expended ERA1 and obligated 45% of ERA2. And so we had agenda items on the county agenda on Monday morning to transfer the two initial deposits for ERA2 over to OCHFA. And we'll hold those until we get the agreement fully executed by all of the parties. And then once we reach that magic spending threshold, we'll have Commissioner Mon as chairman execute the request for the additional funds for ERA2. Under ERA2, the county was awarded a little over $13 million of emergency rental assistance funds, $13,241,927.50 to be exact. The ERA1 program required that if you had not obligated 65% of your funds prior to September 30th, that you would be subject to reallocation. Oklahoma County will not be subject to reallocation because we've expended 85% of our funds and obligated 100% of our ERA1 funds.
When you say obligated, what do you mean exactly? I understand.
There are applications that are in the pipeline that have been pre-qualified, but those actual payments haven't gone out to landlords, utility companies, you know, kind of, because there's so many large distributions each month, they tend to pull those together kind of with just blanket account numbers. And so they'll only remit payments once every 2 weeks or once a month to some of the utilities. So there'll be one batch of several payments that go to O&G, one batch of several payments that go to OG&E, or, you know, whatever their utility, you know, provider is. And so those, they're approved, application's been approved, those funds have been set aside for them, but the funds have not actually transferred.
distributed.
Exactly.
And are there, I'm assuming there are still people that are asking for assistance, but being told that there aren't currently funds available, or what's the process?
So we completely shut down the application for the last 2 weeks of September because there was a backlog of about 5,000 applications that
Wow.
CCP and CFO were trying to work through.
Any idea how many dollars that is?
It was almost $148 million of total application. And if
Those
it's
aren't pre-qualified.
That's not pre-qualified, yes, sir. So, and it's also important to note that CFO is kind of the partner agency of all of the jurisdictions in Oklahoma. And it was kind of set up intentionally, that way we could make sure that dollars got distributed appropriately across jurisdictional lines. So CFO is making sure that, you know, a resident in Oklahoma County isn't pulling from Oklahoma City funds, and folks from Oklahoma City aren't pulling from Oklahoma County funds, etc. They have the big pool of dollars that are available statewide, and if you know you don't reside in Tulsa, Cleveland, or Oklahoma County, then you get the statewide allocation. If you don't live in Oklahoma City, you live in Oklahoma County but outside of Oklahoma City limits, you get Oklahoma County dollars. If you live in Oklahoma County but inside Oklahoma City limits, you get Oklahoma City dollars. So that's kind of the allocation process. We do random audits every month. I will, as they send me like numbers and those kinds of things, I pull at least 20 unique funds. I don't know names, I don't know addresses or anything like that, other than I ask for a verbal confirmation and written confirmation that this resident or this residence is, you know, within Oklahoma County but outside of Oklahoma City limits. And then they approve, you know, what payments and, you know, those kinds of things. For total, through ERA1, 1,633 unique households have received these ERA1 dollars. We initiated the program at the end of March, but no funds or applications were actually dispersed at the end of March. So the first month, we received 48 fully paid processed applications, processed $125,000 worth of expenditures through September. We did, for the month of September, we did 427 unique household applications for a total of $1.4 million of assistance.
How are potential applicants notified that there is such a program?
So that's a great question. So CFO and CCP have a generous benefactor that is providing newspaper as well as social media and TV time for a lot of the dissemination of the information. And then as other folks request, we'll provide information to various other cities.
What about
towns,
rental
and
management
all that.
companies?
Rental management companies they're all made aware. What's unique is both the rental company, the utility providers, or the individual recipients of the funds can apply for the fund. So it could be, you know, your apartment complex, it could be OG&E making the request for you. There still has to be an application that's completed and verified with a real live person at CFO, CCP. To make sure that you're eligible for the funds, but it's been very.
What about the Metropolitan Housing Authority?
I think Oklahoma City has been working.
It goes outside of Oklahoma City.
Exactly.
Good.
And if I recall correctly, the percentage of funds that are going to administration versus actually going to help, it's a very, very small percentage. I
Yeah.
wanna say like 5%.
Yeah,
I don't
that's-
remember for sure.
So the programs the first program allowed for 10%, the second program allowed for 15%. We've kind of capped, that, so we know for sure that we're not going, over that.
Okay.
We allocated, I'll say we've reserved the full 10% to the extent that we need it. That way we can control to make sure we don't overspend on those administrative expenses. But I can also tell you the spend down, on those. So I think we're about $200,000 in administrative expense for the initial program.
Where's that principally going?
To CFO CCP.
Well, from the beginning of this program, when it first started out, when they got the 1.5 from the county commissioner pot of money that you spoke of, Community Cares partners, and I think the contact person at that time was Miss Carl, Nurse Carl. I'd like to commend that whole organization, Miss Carl and all, in getting the money out the door for the time that they did. They ended up, in some cases, almost setting up a triage out at the fairgrounds to help the people because there were so many people applied, and it was toward the end of the year, close to Christmas time. They did an excellent job of helping those families. I got a lot of calls from families who had applied and they hadn't heard anything, but and they had to apply online. I got this one call from a lady, and I never forget her name. I'm not going to say it. She got an email at 11:30 at night, and she thought it was a joke. She said, I got this email telling me to come out to the fairground because my application is being processed. I said, who is it from? And she said, it's from that agency that's supposed to be helping with my rent and my utilities. Okay. I got another one. I said, you need to go. I got another call from a lady who was 4 months behind on her mortgage payment. And this lady had previously been on Section 8. She had gotten a job and she gave up her Section 8. She bought a house. She'd been in this house for like 3 years and she got laid off. And from the time she got laid off, she started getting farther and farther and farther behind. And this lady had been calling me, saying, they're not going to get to me. I'm going to be put out in the street. Well, she got a letter also in that. I'll say letter, it was an email. It was close to midnight when she said, is this a spam? I said, no, you need to go out there. So those are two cases that I know. They went out there. One needed help with their rent, and the other lady needed help with her mortgage payment. They went out there on the date and the time, and they waited, and they waited. I think she said it took her 3 hours, both of them like 3 to 4 hours from the time they got there, because there were so many people out there. Well, this one got her rental assistance paid up, plus her utilities. Okay, utilities. It was in the wintertime. Utilities company were not shutting off the thing, but they were sending those letters. Okay, the lady that had the mortgage company, she called me, and she was actually crying on the phone, stating that she had gone out there. They had got her lender on the phone, told her who they were, and they were going to catch up on her mortgage and her utilities. But the interesting thing is that she had a son who said, "Mama, who are you talking to?" And she finally said, "Mr. Pettis." She said, "Can I talk to him?" He got on the phone and he said, "Mr. Pettis, thanks for helping my mom with this program. We don't have to go back on Section 8. We get to keep our house, and, mom's interviewing for a job, so hopefully she'll get the job. But thank you." And this was right around Christmas. So we sit here and we make these decisions that affect thousands of people's lives, and each case is different. And I want to commend the Community Cares partners for the work that they've done in this program. They're still helping people. A year and a half later, there were a lot of people affected by COVID. They lost their jobs. And hopefully, with the continuation of this program, they won't lose their housing. That is the basics. They won't lose their housing. And we never know who these people are. Okay. Well, this second round, the first round had a lot of flexibility in administering the program. Okay. The second round and the current round of money being available is restricted, and you can, basically verify this. To rent and utilities. That's all that the county can use the money for. Okay, so I have no doubt that they will do this program the right way the first time. They were basically weren't hamstrung with using the money. It had some flexibilities, but this one, it's specific. It is specific. And hopefully, what I mentioned earlier about the families that have mortgages that are behind and so forth, they will be able to access that program once it gets off the ground and get help and not losing their home. So my hat's off to Ms. Carl and that team in running this program and getting the money out the door. And it's evident there's a need because of the amount that's already been expended. That's my comment.
Great story.
Thank you, John, for
And
sharing
that's
that.
I just brought, so this comes from NCHSA. It's not, it's just kind of a summary of the difference between the two programs. If you're more than welcome to take it. But as Mr. Pettis said, yes, just like our first program had a little more flexibility. ERA 1 and ERA 2 are very specific towards rental assistance and kind of utility assistance, kind of basic housing necessities.
Mortgage was eliminated.
Yeah, mortgage is not available under this,
Right.
these two type programs. So, but that's, they recognize that. That's where the homeowner assistance fund kind of gets picked up, at the state, for other folks. But so this action is just for us to allow continuation of the program. That way there's not an interruption in the acceptance of applications and processing of applications and all those kinds of things.
So there's obviously a significant need that, as evidenced by your stories, John, is not going away.
And that's true. And the other thing, you basically alluded to it, but you made a comment that if we don't spend that money, it will go to Chicago.
That's
It'll
exactly
go to,
right.
It's going,
it'll
yeah,
go
they'll go to
to
some
some
other program.
other state.
And I guess I should mention, Cleveland County and Tulsa County have not been as robust in their programs. There's a chance that Oklahoma City and Oklahoma County get reallocated dollars from ERA 1 from those two programs. There's a runway that's been announced by Treasury that says we're using the September 30 numbers based on your actual reported numbers to us. We'll begin notifying you 30 days after kind of the close of that period, we're gonna reallocate, give us your best excuse why we shouldn't reallocate your dollars. But Treasury has also announced in that same guidance that it is their preference and they will do everything they can to keep those dollars within the state to which they were originally allocated. Now that is probably not gonna be the case for, some jurisdictions, it's gonna get shipped otherwhere else, but they will make a first effort to reallocate, to the state jurisdiction, where the funds were originally done. What we're waiting to see is there's also an obligation requirement with ERA2 that starts kicking in March of 2022. We think that one is probably going to get extended a little bit just based on kind of the timing of the first one and those kinds of things. Again, I don't think we're going to have a problem obligating our dollars, but there's also a longer runway for expenditure. So ERA2, ERA1 is supposed to wrap up all before September 30th of 2022. All dollars supposed to be out the door. ERA2, we have until September 30th, 2025 to fully expend those dollars. But again, don't think our dollars are going to last.
What do you think happened to those that didn't get their money out?
There have been a whole host of say issues, that have arisen. The one thing I will say, Oklahoma was very proactive with their CARES dollars and kind of implementing the program. So we had about a 6-month head start on a lot of the other states.
I was talking specifically about inside Oklahoma,
Education, probably.
getting the word out.
Yeah, and need. I mean, in some of those areas, Cleveland County is you're looking at some the jurisdictions, Cleveland County and Tulsa County. I think Treasury just over allocated based on population to some spots, and it's just not hard. It's just difficult for them to get their dollars out the door.
Well, and historically, for at least the last 15 or 20 years, Oklahoma County has been much more active just from a housing and RV program than Tulsa County's program was. And I'm not even sure Cleveland County is active right now on their program. Do you know, Mark? Are they doing any? I'm not aware of any. So, I mean, just in general, I think we're doing a better job of getting our dollars out than either one of those counties are. I don't think any other county is big enough to do that right now.
Does Tulsa County not have an ad?
No, I don't think their housing authority is active at all right now. I mean, all those years I was at Spirit Bank, which is headquartered in Tulsa, there was never a Tulsa County mortgage program.
Do they just lose those allocations?
Well, back in the days when we were doing tax exempt programs, they were all going to OFA or us or the MCC program for Cleveland County, things of that nature. Student loans, et cetera.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't see any downside to us doing this or
No, I mean,
anything
it
that's
really is
changed.
just kind of a continuity of service. We want to be, helpful to the citizens of Oklahoma County. We're the county's vehicle, for housing.
Well, thanks to Commissioner Mon also,
Yeah.
and his aggressiveness on making sure this got to us. Be sure and tell him that, Michael.
And I will say there have been, and Michael will attest to this, as this stuff was coming down from Treasury the end of January and kind of the beginning of February, we were on a tight leash to get applications approved by, the Board of Commissioners into Treasury, our allocations, in and out. And in some cases it was, it was a 3 or 4 day window in which we had, to make our request and kind of make sure that we go through all of the necessary legal processes, here to make sure that we're, following statute and, all of those kinds of things. It was a challenge, but it's been successful.
Do we need a motion on number?
This would be number 6.
Six.
Yes, sir.
Before we do the motion, Michael, to the best of your knowledge, if we approve this, there's nothing else the Board of County Commissioners needs from us other than action on this item, or do you know?
Well, you're the authority that gets the dollars out the door, so, we've done our part Monday.
But from the commissioner standpoint, they're comfortable with all of this, I guess is a shorter way to ask that question. Okay, thank you. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, any more discussion? Call for the question, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, let the record show that carried unanimously. And appreciate everybody, I mean, you know, John, your stories, all we do is sit here and say yes or no to a program, but it's nice to know that that helps people and folks make a difference, just like in Tom's letter. You know, that's when you know you're doing the right thing.
You know, sometime it'd be interesting and probably very rewarding for this board to have one of these people like John's contact come and address this with us and talk about the kind of help they received and how they probably wouldn't have been able to keep their home had it not been for our help. It always,
Or get a home too.
yeah,
That's a great idea. I mean, in John's previous life with OHFA, they had one, and I think they probably still do it, but once a year they had a meeting and they recognized their top lenders. I think they called them Diamond or something, but whatever the top lenders were, and you got a little attaboy for being one of our top 10 lenders. But to me, the biggest part of that program was there were folks that were on various Section 8 type or self-help programs that actually earned money by doing things towards housing, and they would get up and tell you what a difference. Some of them would never have gotten into a house or never have been able to rent an apartment, but they tell you about the 18 months or 24 months that they went through this program, and they get checks. I mean, some of those checks were for $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 to people, maybe more, for what they did. And there were always 6 or 8 families that got checks in various amounts. But you know, it's like you look at that, and you have anything to do with that as a lender. Occasionally there would be somebody in there you might have made your loan to, but mostly it was just hearing people talk about what that assistance program did and what difference it made for them. And it was education related, it was housing related. I mean, John, you can speak to it better than I can, but it was a pretty special day.
That was the FSS program, is where families that are on Section 8, they increase their income through employment. And the difference, and once their income goes up, then their portion of their housing assistance goes up. Well, that difference that in their rent is put in an escrow account for them. And they set a goal in 5 years they want to achieve such a goal. During that 5 year period of time, if they achieve those goals, then all of the money that's in that escrow account is given to them tax-free. And a lot of the families that are in the FSS program has taken part, if not all of the money in their escrow account and purchased a home. They purchased a home with that money. And those are the people that go to the Board of Trustees meeting. They meet quarterly. There's usually 5 or 6 graduates of that program. And some of them will say, I use my money to pay off my student loan. I'm going to use this money, or I use some of my money to purchase a home. And it's what you were talking about.
Exactly.
That program. And a lot of these families, and also through this whole program, we're keeping people from becoming homeless.
Yeah.
I mean, people are becoming homeless through really sometimes no fault of their own. They lost their job and their landlord just said, you gotta go and put them out. So this is really a safety net for people that need help. And of course, I spent 36 years in rental assistance, and I've seen them all. I've seen a lot of situations where people are in dire need of assistance. And a lot of times, the situations that they're in is through no fault of their own. And that's what people need to realize. A lot of people that are on Section 8 don't want to be on Section 8, but it provides a roof over their head. And these programs like this it really helps people from basically being homeless. And that lady that I told you that bought that house and got off of Section 8, when she first got on Section 8, she was homeless. But she had gone full circle, and she's had her kids with her. And her son thanked me for saying, now we don't have to go back on Section 8.
Great story.
At the time he was small, he didn't know that they were homeless. He didn't realize that they were homeless, or he may have forgotten. But I can assure you his mother didn't.
That's the kind of story I think that we need to tell. There's a couple of reasons for telling this story. First of all, we get some publicity out of it. And I think that enhances our positions, but even maybe more than that, it enhances the county commissioner's positions for providing that kind of assistance.
Yep.
Would you agree with
I
that,
think-
Michael?
I think without question, and Mike, I don't remember your last name, when this first was put through the county commissioner, they had reservations about this program. They had strong reservations about this program, but they, you know, Commissioner Bloomer and the other commissioner convinced Commissioner
Calvi.
Calvi. He was almost a naysayer. And of course, mine had reservations, but Calvi really had questions about it. But because they took a chance with this 1.5, and that program was ran right by the Community Cares program. They now have something to be proud of, and I think their reputation in administering this program precedes them. So I can't say enough about that organization. And
Ed, is
helping
that something
people.
you can follow up on and see if there's an opportunity to, maybe with Mr. Pettis, to see if he, maybe you can get a testimonial in person?
Well, there's been, when you go to Community Care's website, you have people that are giving testimony on there.
I think a personal testimony would be really
If
good.
we get one of them, or a homeowner with an MCC, or with a DPA, or maybe all three come, it would be.
That'd be very enlightening for us and a feel good.
Well, I think it would be for the county commissioners, as you pointed out as
Oh,
well,
yeah,
to show you're making a difference.
yeah. Sometimes that might help one particular commissioner understand how much help this has been. They will all, but I mean, it'd be interesting.
I think that's a great point, so if you can start doing some legwork on that and let us know, we would appreciate it. All right, that moves us on to agenda item number 7, which is consider and take action with respect to authorizing the executive director and council to develop additional programs and documentation for allocations under the American Rescue Plan request. Does that actually require a vote, or we kind of already done that?
Well, this is
It's
separate. Yeah, so, this is really if the county is presented, so county was awarded, some American Rescue Plan dollars. I can't remember exactly what the total amount is.
140 or 170 million dollars.
So there's a list of about 35 eligible uses for what those dollars, can be used for. Housing is one of them, and I have we've not been requested by anybody to stand up a program, either from the private sector or from the county. The county is still working through they're about to engage a consultant. They went through an RFQ process to select a consultant, a big national firm to help them with the tracking and all that kind of stuff. Once that firm is selected, they will begin soliciting,
When you say a firm, is this a national firm?
Yeah,
that's looking
accounting
for-
firm, consulting firm.
Not just for Oklahoma County.
Not just for, I mean, well, it would just be for Oklahoma County's portion, but somebody that has lots of experience doing this, other places. And so kind of once that firm is selected, I think they intend to start vetting, some various projects.
So we want to get ahead of the curve. and
Exactly.
Maybe make some recommendations.
Well, if the opportunity were to present itself and, the county wasn't able to identify, fully
Program,
expend,
program.
yeah. I mean, I know there are some, I know there are uses, that, some of the commissioners and the county, probably have some legitimate expenses and things that could, and that might take up all of it. I have no idea. But this is just kind of for us, instead of having to have multiple meetings to stand up a program, if we're requested by the county, if they're requested for a program that's housing related, that we can kind of step in and fill that gap, and on the housing side.
So would it be advisable to have some ideas about what we might do, or?
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty specific. I mean, it's kind of got to be targeted to, I mean, it can't just be, it could be similar to our CARES Act program, which was a balance of, mortgage and utility, could be low income housing stability, those kinds of things. This would just allow us to kind of skip a step in the future, instead of having to have multiple meetings to approve, of the authority that if somebody in private industry, or in the housing industry came with an idea to the commissioners, they could say that might be viable. Let's run it through the process. Home finance is probably the one that would administer that for us.
Well, my opinion is when the county did their first allocation, when they had their money then, and this 1.5 was part of it, they also assigned X amount of dollars for small businesses. I would hope that we don't forget the small businesses that were affected by COVID too. I don't know how much they allocated, to small businesses.
I would say it's like $20 million or something.
Okay, let's say they did $20 million, but the mom and pop small business were able to get a grant, I think maybe $10,000 or $25,000 for their businesses to stay in business. I would hope that we send a recommendation to the county that small business program that they had in the past, and it was successful because the money was gone, almost in a week. And it provided assistance to small businesses in Oklahoma County. The city had a program basically the same, but it was for Oklahoma City. And I think a grant to a small business, $15,000 to $25,000, may help that business stay in business, keep their employees, inventory, that type of stuff. I think that if we had an opportunity to recommend to the county for some of the use of this money, that some of it go to small businesses in Oklahoma County.
I can assure you there will be not a shortage of recommendations on.
Well, I think that should be one.
And again, like this is not us,
All regs.
that this is not us dictating, anything. It's just if the county is presented with an opportunity, it allows us to develop a program that would meet that opportunity on behalf of the county.
Well, essentially, let's just stay in front of that to
Yeah.
say, you guys are authorized. And if the county comes, I'm sure that you'll still come to the board and
Oh,
say, hey,
absolutely.
here's what we've done.
Absolutely.
It just allows you to do the initial steps and start the process.
And if it, this would allow us to kind of put our heads together, all that kind of stuff. We would, just like we did with the CARES Act dollars, and just like we've done with ERA 1 and ERA 2, we would bring the full program back, for final approval by the board.
But we wouldn't have to have two meetings, one to
Exactly.
say do it, and one to say, okay. we
Exactly.
approve.
This kind of gives us the opportunity, if we're requested, to begin developing that program and then bring it back.
You keep saying if they requested. What's wrong with us going on record or requesting them that we'd like to participate in the program and we don't? Okay, let me give you an example. The small business program, if the money was set aside by the county, but they hired OIA to administer the program. Okay.
And that's the exact same process we
because
did
there's
for us.
as far as
We can't do this, the small business. We can only do housing. OIA, manufacturing, industrial business, that's why they got to handle it.
But I think, John, to your point, if we say we authorize them, they can reach out and say, we would like housing to be part of this.
Yeah.
And maybe bump that up from wherever it is in the list to being considered.
there's absolutely no reason to reinvent the wheels.
Exactly.
I mean, there really won't be, and that wouldn't cost us any staff or anything other than your time and so forth, which is a program allowable expense, so.
Yep.
Okay.
Herschel, any questions or comment from you?
I'd like to sit over there for a minute so I can ask a question, because I read that paragraph and it says, however, boards cannot discuss, or take action on any decisions. So can I not ask a question?
You can when we get to, about this you can, but we always give citizens
for
a
citizen
address it, we just can't vote or take action.
Okay, so I can still ask a question?
Yes.
Sure.
Thank you. I want to go sit over there.
You still can. So again, this is proactive. I have no
We don't
idea.
need a motion on this.
I do need a motion.
They need a motion because it involves the possible program under a different program, the American Rescue Plan.
So move.
Second.
So a motion is second. Any discussion? Call for the question. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show that carried unanimously, and thank you guys for being proactive and obviously whatever we can do to help housing, we want to do. And I think we all remember that the money kind of had an odd path getting to us last time, and maybe if we could, to John's point, say, hey, we don't want to be a leftover if not all of it gets used somewhere else. Sure. We can spend it on housing. That's always a legitimate thing, I think. Okay, now we will open it up to citizen participation. Any citizen can address the board.
I'm a citizen of Oklahoma County. Maybe one of Delaware County too.
Marin County.
Yeah, absolutely. Marin County is so far. I want to know what all this controversy is, and Michael, you probably be better at to answer this question about the jail and on that allocation of money that we got for the county, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
What is that all about?
Okay.
You want to take a
Are we
shot?
talking about CARES Act dollars?
Yes.
Yeah, last year a big chunk went to the jail, and then we got a little piece of the leftover for this $1.5 million we've been talking about. Is
Sure.
basically how that.
I would suggest that you let him answer that after you close this meeting,
Okay.
since it's not
No, I understand.
germane to the housing.
Okay, gotcha.
Good enough. Anybody with any other things?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion saying we adjourn at 2:56 p.m. That clock's a little bit off.
Hey.
So now that we're off the record,
Well,
Now,
hang
Michael.
on.
Wait a minute.